Warning, this podcast typically features spoilers and strong opinions. Proceed with caution. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Two Grooms, One Plot, the podcast where two married lifelong storytellers talk about stories. I'm Pavi Proczko, audiobook narrator, author, actor, etc.
And I'm Colin Funk, childhood development expert and teaching artist.
And today we're going to be talking about Leave the World Behind. But first, let's talk about our moment of the week.
Mm-hmm. Why don't you go first?
Oh, boy. So we've been watching The Simpsons. Mm-hmm. And
shocking.
Shocking. So we've talked about this a lot. But there was, the moment was the opening. It's like this iconic opening, and I didn't realize that they had redone the opening.
For the later seasons.
Yeah. So like when it went HD, they redid the opening, and I love it. They did a great job like paying homage to the old one. And actually they had like changed the very, very original one. Mm-hmm. Like the very, very first one was changed just a little bit. Where it had like a moment with like a bus and it's like not there anymore. It's like when Bart is like riding his skateboard through the people on the sidewalk. That wasn't there. It used to be like people like chasing a bus.
Yeah.
And now that's gone. And there's Mr. Burns and Smithers are now in the factory. But with this new version, I don't know, that really surprised me. It's like it's like ingrained in my memory because I stopped watching it initially before that shift happened. So now seeing it was a big surprise. That's my moment.
Nice. All right, my moment. I saw the Mean Girls movie without you, so you'll have to come.
I'll have to see it.
Go see it. I'd see it again, but I liked it generally, so we can maybe talk about that one too.
Fun.
But I just want to, it's like shout out to the guy who played Damien. I don't remember his name.
I'll look it up. You keep talking.
But he was so funny. I think he was the funniest part of that movie. I think he was so funny. I mean, I love Renee Rapp. I've been obsessed with Renee Rapp since she sang that song at the what are those called? The Jimmy
Awards. Yeah, the High School Musical Theater Awards.
Yeah.
Jaquel Spivey.
Yes. He was very funny, and he has some great, like, he's like perfected, like the one-liner. He's just like playing everything very, very real, even though it's ridiculous.
Sure.
And so he's very funny.
The Arthur School of Comedy.
Yeah. And he, there's a line that it's like, he's literally just like, it's not even focused on the line, but he was talking about like what they were going to have for lunch. I think it was when they're like, oh, Regina's ruined. You got to eat lunch with us now. And they're like, oh, so excited. I'm going to, and while she's like, well, you could see in her brain, she's like, the Katie Heron, she's like, oh, she's ruined. I'm not going to eat lunch with that. I have other plans. Like you see her gears working, but like the conversation is still happening.
Yeah.
And Damien says something like, oh, I can't wait. I think I'm going to have dumplings or chicken nuggets or both. Like it was like whatever he said, it was so funny, and it like caught me way off guard, and it was very funny. And one of them was dumplings. I don't remember what the other one was. And I just loved the two choices of foods, and then like one of the options was both. It was very, very funny. So that's my moment.
Nice. All right, let's do our story.
Let's do it.
The story of the week is Leave the World Behind. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll do our switch hit synopsis. Mm-hmm.
So it starts with Julia Roberts' character being like,
I gotta go on vacation.
We're gonna leave. I'm stressed. I I looked out the window
and I hate people.
You didn't let me set up the whole.
Oh, sorry.
joke.
Go
There's
ahead.
no-
Yeah.
no,
Sure.
the joke is over now. You
Okay. Sorry.
Done.
Okay. So they go on vacation
So they go on vacation.
to some big villa out on Long Island. And
from New York
yeah,
City.
they're from New York City. And then they, like, the internet starts going out, and then they're visited by strangers who end up being like the owners of the place. And then turns out there's like stuff happening in the city. There's been a blackout.
Right. And things begin to devolve. There's like weird animal sightings and these people are like trying to get along with each other while they're figuring out like what's happening with the world. What should we do? Like,
But the blackout, it turns out is some kind of cyber attack, that there may be like hackers or something, and everybody's phone is affected, and all the cells towers are out, and cable's gone, and radio's gone.
yeah, so it's essentially them just like trying to deal with these as the technologies are failing around them, and as other things start happening, like the one son starts losing his teeth because of
There's like a big like sound attack, like a microwave something burst of radiation, and it affects over sound waves, and so he starts losing his teeth, and maybe has like got bit by a tick or something, some kind of poisoning.
We don't know. That's the whole
Right,
thing.
right.
We don't know if he's like sick because of the tick or the radiation poisoning. It's not really clear.
Right.
But we're watching the one family who is there on vacation versus it was a father and daughter who own this place. It's their summer place. We watched them. And so the family vacationing is a white family. The family who owns it is a black family. So there's some racial tension between them.
Sure.
And they're trying to just like decide like, do we trust each other? Are we in this together?
Right.
Are we protecting each other? Or are we out for ourselves? And that's kind of like I feel like
the tension
beyond
of the story. Yeah.
right. Because along with them trying to just like figure out, is this the apocalypse?
Right.
Is this not? Is this something to wait out? Is this something we have to like strategize and do? It's a lot of like waiting and being like, what?
Yeah.
What should we do? What's
like deciding when to wait and when to act.
Yeah.
And the big kind of climax moment happens where we have Kevin Bacon's in it. The Kevin Bacon character has been like hoarding, and he's like one of the hoarder people. He's like a doomsday guy.
Doomsday
prepper. And they go to find him because he probably has some medicine that maybe can help the son who's sick. And it kind of like comes to a head where they're basically like threatening to like shoot each other because he's like, I need to take care of mine and you can take care of yours.
Right.
And despite being able to convince him to like help, you kind of find out in the end that the father, the black father owner of the house, is involved in some weapons deals. He's like he moves money around, is his job. And that apparently this all looks like the most cost-effective way to eliminate a country, to like kind of collapse a country. And that they've been kind of experiencing that strategy firsthand, where you eliminate communication, you cause mass chaos.
The strategy is essentially like confuse everyone and turn them against each other.
Right. And so you see it just kind of happen.
Yes.
In this microcosm. And the movie ends with them, Julia Roberts and the daughter, watching New York get blown up.
And the other person's daughter, not Julia Roberts'
Right, not
daughter.
Julia Roberts' daughter.
Because
Julia
really
Roberts' daughter
ends-
gets to actually see the finale of Friends, because they lose the internet right before she's able to finish the last episode of Friends, the sitcom.
But she stumbles on
a doomsday
DVD
bunker
collection.
with a DVD collection.
Yes.
Interesting. It was a really, really interesting kind of way to end it.
Yeah.
We should talk about that because I saw a lot of criticism about that.
Interesting.
That we should touch upon. So what? Let's. Okay.
So I'll preface this too.
Yeah.
I saw it
Yeah.
on a plane before Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah.
By
Seems like a
myself.
bad idea.
I was by myself, yes. I will say that it seems like a bad idea in terms of being comfortable on a plane.
Right.
A good idea in terms of intensifying
The stress
stress
for
of the
sure.
movie.
Because I saw it in the comfort of my home with a dog on my lap.
yesterday.
I had it yesterday.
Yeah.
I had a very different experience watching this film.
So we saw this separately. So part of that is to say, like, I don't know how. It's been a couple weeks.
Sure.
So I'm not sure I remember all the details that clearly. But I'll see what I can do. But from when I remember and experienced, it was like fairly successful in being unsettling. And I generally thought it was an interesting movie. I generally like those kind of like, what if the world is ending kind of films, and I thought it had an interesting take. And I think it was a particularly interesting message, it being about this, like, it's a warning to not turn against each other. And it was like, I liked it. I guess I generally liked it. We also haven't talked about it.
We haven't talked about it. I generally thought it was a little bit less successful than that.
Sure.
And I would be interested to delve into what the differences were here, because I think it was unsettling was undercut somewhat by some other elements of the film.
Okay. And I suppose, like, I have a feeling, knowing you and your sensibilities, that not that it's like unique to you, because I'm sure a lot of people share that experience, but that those things wouldn't do the same thing for me.
That's possible. Sure.
So,
Obviously it didn't.
Yeah, obviously. So let's start.
Yeah, let's get into it. So what worked?
Check for some what worked.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked kind of like the general style of it. I thought there was like enough bits of humor to like not drag it down too far for me, but not too much that it felt hokey. Same for, there was a lot of like very stressful scenarios that, like, I was realizing they were setting these things up to have me really go worst case in my brain, without actually having to go worst case scenario. And it was like kind of moment after moment after moment where it's like, this could be really bad. This could be really bad. Okay. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't great.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as bad as I
imagined
made it in my brain.
Like what?
Things like the moment with the well, they were dancing to the record. I was like, oh no, we're also going to have this like messy relationship thing go on. And it didn't go that far. They did like ask these questions and explore this kind of like, what are our feelings going to be like when we're dealing with this kind of apocalyptic world? Like, can we set stuff aside and find attraction in someone else and not be as scared to kind of, not to like go, because they didn't go as far as like have the wife cheat on her husband. But they did have this moment where they like were exploring their attraction to each other.
Yeah.
And I thought there's moments like that there that I thought were very interesting. Or like even when the deer are all like crowding them at the end.
Yeah.
I was like, we're gonna see something happen. Even the gun showdown.
Yeah.
Like there were so many situations where like this could be bad, this could be bad, this could be bad. And part of me thinks that it was set up to be like, we're not doomed. It's not doomed. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
There are all these things that are set up but we can make decisions and we can appeal to people.
Yeah.
And things don't have to devolve, and we don't have to make the choices that we regret, and we don't have to. Like I feel like there was a purposeful hope left in that wasn't super like obvious.
I see. That's really interesting.
And I feel like that. What are you? Why are you laughing?
Because like basically everything you just said is like one by one the things that I hated. Tell me. When we get to what didn't work, we'll get there, because I have things that did work for sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Go on. Do you have more?
Sure. No, but you go. You talk about the things that you.
Okay, so
that work.
We'll there are some very specific moments that like were very eerie and that really worked for me.
Okay.
The boat approach, like all of these kind of like these eerie moments, like the boat approaching and like seeing it get closer, and then having it like run
really
into the beach,
because it's like a slow. There's this, like the slow burn.
Yeah, it's really
another
slow.
situation where you're like, something shit's gonna happen. We're gonna see people get ripped apart. We're gonna see blah and blah. But it wasn't that bad,
right? Or
it was like, oh, eerie and creepy, and the boat did. But like,
yeah, it's more that like it's the thing that you don't. Like the bad thing isn't that people are going to get crushed. The bad thing is like what's behind the boat, right? It's like the fact that even happened is the bad thing.
That is very terrifying.
And like you see a more extreme version than another good moment is with the plane crash, right? Where we watch this plane kind of like nosedive.
Yeah. Remember, I was on a plane watching it.
I know.
I'm sure that
and it's like really very eerie and effective. And yet it's like even just like the fact that the plane crashed isn't even like the worst of it. It's that all the planes are crashing, It's like that's the problem. The problem is like the horror of losing control like that.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of the whole movie.
And then you even get to the minutia where when the kid starts taking his teeth out, I'm like, I've had that nightmare. His teeth feel weird and he just starts pulling them out one by one. And I was like, chills down my spine. Yes. I was sure that he was just going to wake up. It was just going to be a dream because I'm like, I've had that dream. And it's like, he must just be dreaming like in his like fever dream. Because
he wakes up.
He wakes up and
he wakes up.
And he was a little feverish the night before and he just kind of like plays with his tooth. And I just assumed that he was going to wake up and be like, oh my God, I'm having this stress dream because of this. And I'm like, oh my God, no, it's real. It's actually happening that his teeth are falling out. What happened?
It's that horrifying thing too. I thought it was really interesting, like to have Julia Roberts watch him pull out his teeth.
Yeah.
And that he's kind of like that kind of like morbid fascination with things like that where he can't stop doing it.
That's also why I thought it was a dream, because it's like the moment one is out, I'd be like, I'm not doing another one.
Yeah, but like you would probably check, and if it starts to fall out, you know what I mean? Like,
yep. Horrible.
Sounds horrible.
There also like the whole situation when Ethan Hawke is the dad and he drives out and he gets lost, and very believable to me. But he also like, it's when he runs into that, he like encounters this woman who only speaks Spanish, who's like trying to get help. And he just like gets fed up because he can't communicate with her, and he gets overwhelmed by it and he just leaves.
Yeah, I don't know if fed up is the right word, but he's definitely overwhelmed,
and
he's like frightened by it. I think
right,
like
he's scared of it. Yeah, because he doesn't know what she's saying, doesn't know what she needs.
She scares him.
Yeah,
and like it's like, I'm scared for you, but I'm also scared because of you.
Right.
So it's like, and so he leaves her behind.
He leaves her behind, and that's like really
think about that interaction. Like
that felt very genuine to something that would happen in an emergency. Like less, even more so than like people turning on each other. It's like, it doesn't even require that kind of malice. It's just, I don't know what to do with your fear and my fear, so I'm going alone. And that actually felt more, even that actually reflects that weird gun standoff. That's actually the same thing that's happening there, is what it feels like.
Kind of, yeah.
And I felt like it hit me much stronger than the standoff did, or the standoff was maybe more poignant because of that, where it's like
Sure. Yeah.
Kevin Bacon is doing the same thing that Ethan Hawke just did.
Yeah.
And now Ethan Hawke has to be in her position.
Right.
What else?
I mean, even that same situation where he like is driving away, and there's some really good imagery just in general that is like, this would be terrifying. And like, it kind of lets you be puts you in that position where you were getting as confused and as kind of like frustrated as like people must be. Like, we're trying to figure this out. But if it's like, because right after that scene where he's talking to that woman, the plane flies by and drops all these flyers and these like red flyers. So
at first, like, it looks like is it like a poison gas?
Right,
like
gas?
What is it?
Is it just like blood?
Right.
Like we can't tell until it's like covering his car, I guess.
Right.
But like, it's still terrifying because it's like little slips that are like, that say "Death to America" in Arabic.
Yeah.
So it's like these things that would like freak you out and like make you panic and try to, I don't know,
outrun it, leave, get out of the way,
whatever.
Yeah.
There's so many things. And I think they do a good job at like, you know, being like, yeah, well, if people know, if they can see what we're afraid of, they can use that against us. Mm-hmm. Like they had a whole conversation about it being like, well, I heard that they had the same flyers, same things happening across the country, but it was in Korean.
Right.
So it's like they're just like preying on people's
fears
based on, you know, maybe New York might be more afraid of
right
the Middle East, while the West Coast might be more afraid of Asia,
of Koreans or Chinese. Right. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Who knows?
Something
but that's we don't know. We don't actually know the reliability of that information.
Right. Of course. Like we don't actually know the answer to anything.
Mm-hmm.
But like the things that they're clearly using are already built-in fears against us, whatever the cyber attack is. Like when we see, there's a scene where there's like Teslas, just like,
I thought that was pretty effective.
That was very effective. That
freaked me the fuck out. At first, like I was like,
freaked me out.
I was very skeptical of the scene because it's like they approach the highway and it's just like white cars are just like blocking, and I was like, wait, are all those cars white? Were they lazy about this? Are these like prop pieces? The set? Like, what is happening?
And that would be very eerie.
And that too, that I was like, wait, they're all white? Why? And then once I saw they were Teslas, I was like, oh my God, they're all just like on their own going and crashing.
Yeah. I will say that it was the time that I most felt like they did the horror story film where I'm like, the second I saw something like that, I'd be like,
we're getting out of here.
Okay, we're going to turn around.
Yeah,
obviously,
for sure.
I don't want to deal with this. There's like whatever was making them crash. I'm like, I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah.
I would have like turned around right away. Mm-hmm. And like so what happens, like they find it and they're like, oh my God, there's Teslas. There's no one in these cars.
And it takes her seeing like the description. It's like directly from the lot. And it takes her seeing the description of like self-driving car to like understand what happened.
Right.
And I was like, it took you that long?
It's like, they do a lot of like, there's a lot of like, okay, clearly this isn't the way out. We can't do this.
Right.
Also, it's like the end of the world. Like, drive off the road. You're in
an SUV. You should be able to.
And then it was like enough time because like they do it with just enough time to get back in the car before all these other Teslas start.
Because it's like they're out there a while before they would have been seeing Teslas passing by them the whole time.
Yeah, who knows? Like we don't know. Like it's not.
It's like weirdly convenient,
thing, but like.
Yeah, and we can get more detailed in the.
I mean, that's like I can forgive things like that. That's fine.
Part.
No, and I don't think it doesn't work. I think it still was very eerie.
Yeah,
but
it's eerie.
That is like the convenience of a horror story. Like that's like the most where I'm like, well, yeah, that they're just squeaked by, but like they wanted us to know,
right?
So that's why they had to go through the whole rigmarole of freaking us out because it was pretty scary. Just like, and then it was just a bunch of self-driving cars like hurling themselves at the rest of these cars.
Yeah.
Because you watched one of them slam into like, it's like, I don't know why it's so eerie.
Yeah. I don't know either. It's like knowing that it can just maybe could happen.
That's sure.
There doesn't even have to be anybody in it. It's just like
that's the whole point.
Yeah.
There isn't anyone in it. Yes. Things like that could be easily
and watching
hacked.
like really
That seems pretty.
You're right.
It seems like a real fear. I think that's part of it.
And watching really expensive things break. That's also that's a thing.
Sanctity.
Yeah, a little bit. It's like, oh God, it's a Tesla, and it's just like full speed into the one behind. It's like, oh no, God. Another thing I thought this is going to go on my list of things that didn't work too, but there are some images that work really well. She's like she's like trying to figure out the light switches in the kitchen, and she turns one of them on, and then it's nothing, and she turns another one on, and it's just the lights outside, but all it does is light up all of the deer's eyes. Like, so all these deer that are just in the woods, like hundreds of them, and it just lights their eyes up, and she's like, oh, that's the wrong one, but she hasn't looked outside. She doesn't even see that that's happening, turns it back off, and it's just pitch black. You can't see anything anymore. Weird. So like the animals were like half successful to me.
Okay. I think it feels like it was like almost meant to be a red herring.
Yeah, almost.
Generally.
Yeah.
I don't think it was.
It's an indication of something, and then it ended up being a plot point. I don't know. We'll get there.
Kind of.
I think.
Yeah, we could talk about it.
And then there was some really cool perspective stuff that happened, in addition to really bad perspective stuff that happened with the cameras. But it was like there were the moments where they split like walls or windows or doorways, where it was like filmed along the wall, and so you saw two people on opposite sides. I thought that was actually really effective when it worked.
Okay.
Well, those perspectives worked for me. I thought that was really cool.
Okay. Do you have an example, just so?
Where it's like when they're talking with the family like that in the first meeting, when the owners of the house come and they're talking to the family, it kind of, when they're like passing through the scene, it shows them on opposite sides of the wall, but the wall is bisecting the screen, like the view. So you see the wall and two people on opposite sides. And same thing happens a few times when they're like looking through a window and you get to see like outside and then and then the people inside. So it's like a lot of using the set to actually separate the people on the screen, kind of giving us this physical, obvious delineation between people.
Split,
Thought that was interesting, the way that they were able to use that. And I was curious what the set was like. Was it a house, or did they like do it digitally? I thought it was interesting. So I was like, did they just build a hole in the wall that they could move a camera through it, or what was that? That was interesting. Anything else that you felt like really worked?
Nothing like jumping out at me. I guess I'm not sure if this is I thought, okay, because it was produced by the Obamas.
Yes. I was going to mention this too, yeah.
Part of it was like that. I didn't know that before I watched it, and it like came up before the movie, like produced by Michelle and Barack Obama. And I was like, what? I didn't know that. And as I'm watching it, I just kept being like, do they know something?
This is the story that they have to tell?
I guess it made me like hyper. I was like, it did make me think like, this might be important.
It lends it some credence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which it's like, there are things that maybe I don't believe as like interactions, but like the warnings
Yeah.
that it was like, it was giving us warnings because of them, regardless or not of the realism.
Right.
Which, I don't know, for that kind of storytelling purposes, it made me say like, well, that's not that important then.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I thought that was very effective just as a, again, as a way of lending credence, where it's like, oh, I should probably listen to this. It makes it eerier because it's like these important people that had some inside knowledge are being like, you should maybe
Yeah, I heard that they like
watch the story. I have a story to tell.
I heard they like sent it to the
Yeah.
Obamas. Barack was like, change this, this, and this, and that's about how it would happen. Like it was like
Yeah.
that kind of
Eerie. Yeah, that's really creepy.
like, oh, do it like this and like this and like this, and then that's pretty accurate.
yeah.
And I'm like, makes it like freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah. Ugh.
So let's see, but let's move on to then
Things that didn't work.
things that didn't work.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead?
okay.
You seem to have a lot.
I
You
do.
seem
I
like-
do.
You seem
So,
like bursting
I
the
am-
seams
I
with the
am.
things that you don't agree with.
Okay, so by and large, I think the things that didn't work for me tended to be the interpersonal things with the people.
Okay,
Not
I
so
agree.
much the actual like eerie stuff, because it's
Yeah.
like the story ended up being much more, or the whole movie is most successful when we're dealing with the things that are, you know, ostensibly accurate. The stuff that Obama would have looked at and said, yeah, that's pretty much how it would go, is the stuff that works, right? It's like
Yeah.
the planes crashing, the boats crashing, the technology not working, etc. Right?
Yeah.
The Teslas crashing into each other, and so all of kind of the disaster parts work.
Okay.
The things that seemed to fall flat for me were the relationship bits. So
I see where. Okay.
Yeah.
You tell me.
So by and large, the script didn't work for me. I thought it was not good dialogue, and
The dialogue
The
didn't work for you.
dialogue didn't work. Yeah, the dialogue didn't work for me. And there
None
are
of the dialogue ever.
I mean, the things that did are unnoticeable because they weren't offensive. So there wasn't anything that was like, yes, that's great. It's awesome dialogue. It was either fine and no notes, or that's actually weird and doesn't work. And I've been trying to like wrap my head around why I felt that way. And I think it
Yeah.
has something to do with kind of who the story is for. We've talked about the cafe table framework, right? Where we have like someone telling someone else a story, and that's kind of like how I like to think of my stories, where it's like we have one person telling another person a story, one person telling one person, right? And it informs how the story, what information you include, what is the tone, what are the things that people are dealing with, and the person that's receiving the story has to have a lot in common with our main character, with our protagonist of the story.
Who is?
I would say it's Julia Roberts.
I think that's how they framed it.
That's
for
what they
sure.
want it to be. She's the first person we see. She's the last person we see. And that's, shorthand. But
She's not
essentially,
the last person we see.
isn't it?
The daughter is definitely the last person we see.
Oh, you're right. I forgot. You're right. That was like an
We've already done
epilogue.
this.
You're right. Yes. But, we're following her journey, right? And it's very
Yes.
unclear to me what her kind of double factor problem is, what her problem is. What is she trying to do? So it's like, we know we have this disaster, and it's like, what is the big question that she's trying to answer through the story? And I don't think they really clarified it, because I can't really come up with one that justifies all of the things that she did. And it's not that they don't have one, but it's that it doesn't match up always with the behavior and with the things that are specifically said word like down to the line.
Okay, can you give me an example? Because I think I
Sure.
have a pretty clear idea
So it's kind of like between two things. She's like, okay, I need to survive. Right? That's like one problem. I'm going to
I don't think that's the
I'm going to survive.
I don't think that's the one.
And then the other side is the kind of the internal bit, which is like I need to restore my faith in humanity. Maybe.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I guess I would amend that and say I want to relate to other people.
Yeah. Right.
I want the ability to relate to other people.
Yeah. And there are very weak instances, I think, of her doing the relating. The action story bit, the bit where I need to survive, very clear. It's like a person, a layman trying to like survive a disaster. It's like, of course she's going to have
That's
all that makes sense. The bits where they're doing relationship stuff just was like very sloppy. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense why she would, why they would be so weird about her being weird about them showing up. And also why she was so weird for so long about them showing up, and kind of how she even spoke wasn't necessarily even all that bad. It was like the lessons they were trying to give were kind of all over the place, and it really didn't focus in to give us this really nice arc. And so she has all of these instances and all of these experiences with these other people, and then at the end we finally have our like big, oh my god, I wish I wasn't so awful. Do you think I like being awful? I wish I wasn't awful. I do like people. I miss people.
Yeah.
And I never really, other than her saying out loud, I hate people, I don't get the sense that she actually hates people.
I guess that's the point for me, is that that sometimes people think that way. They think that like black and white in their mind, and they like build this story of like, I hate people, or I don't want to interact with people, or it must be something that's wrong with me, or like this thing that I'm like, I'm finding resistance. And like you said, there's a lot of times where it's like, there's a lot of justified reasons why someone would be skeptical of other people.
Yeah.
And being resistant. And she just happens to have a personality that is prone to being kind of blunt and direct about it. And that does not always sit well with people.
Right.
And tends, especially nowadays, to get negative feedback from the world.
Yeah.
Whether or not it, like the feeling behind it is justified.
Right.
And attributing, behavior and like, just like making behavior mean the same thing as your ethical being is kind of what's going wrong. I guess what I'm saying is
I guess I'm seeing like she tells us what is in her soul and she does not behave that way.
I think people are wrong about what's in their soul.
I think that makes it a confusing story, because then we're in it. We have a different problem then.
I mean, I think what she wants is to say she doesn't want to necessarily behave this way all the time, whether or not it's justified all the time. She doesn't want to jump down people's throats when she's frustrated. I believe that. I guess I'll amend what I'm saying. I'm kind of pushing back, because like it's not that I think I'm seeing what you're seeing in general. There was a lot of instances that I kept thinking to myself, okay, but in this situation, people bond real quick.
Yeah.
People bond, and they're like, I'm in this with these other people, and we're not just gonna like kick out these other people. Like it's I think it's pretty innately human when you're kind of like stuck with people. and there was a lot of like everyone's doing their own thing in different places.
Yeah.
And that was like a big stressor for me, where I'm like, stay in one room with all these people.
Yeah.
If you guys have something to do or look like it's the horror movie, like let's split
Why are you
up.
splitting up? Yeah.
Don't split up.
Right.
And because we as humans, I think the reason we have this reaction when we're watching horror movies, like don't do that, is because in real life, we're like, no, we all have this thing to do. We're all going to go together. We're all going to do this thing.
Right.
Like, I just cannot believe, on a side note, that the daughter just ran away during an apocalypse. I just don't believe it. Don't buy it.
Yeah.
No.
And it's like, and it was a weird thing where it was justified because apparently she's like, early 2000s TV fan, as like this young person who's like discovering all these like oldies and doesn't know what a rerun is. It's like, it was like a little dialogue like that too, though. Just like it fell flat, which is like, what is it called when they would do things again on the TV? It's a rerun. Yeah. Why would they do that? Are you dumb? Like what?
Yeah, but I mean, like kids. I mean, those are conversations that are happening that are
maybe I just haven't experienced it. It just felt really forced, and it was the same as like
sure.
It was the same. There's like a lot of forced things. Like even when the owners come and they're like, oh, I'm GH. Oh, it goes by George. Yeah, that's why I really preferred the old days before the internet, when we could talk on the phone. And I was like, wait, did you do it? Did you like knock out the internet because you're mad about it? It was like a weird,
but I think
there's a weird meta moment that just like really was so awkward and out of place.
I'm not sure I felt that in that like I was like, it does feel really weird, but I think it's like intentionally so. Where like, they're kind of nervous about it. They're saying weird things and it's being read weird.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I do think that some of the dialogue is clumsy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like, it does feel in the end, I guess like part of it's like, I do feel like some of the dialogue it did read exactly what we were supposed to come away with, rather than like how people would act.
Yeah.
And then we're supposed to glean it from that.
Right. And I think that's like kind of, it felt a lot more like one of those, like a Discovery Channel,
like
reenactment of something.
Sure.
Like than it did a story. Like it is a story, but
that's a little bit harsh for me, but like, I do
and
understand what you're saying.
it's not like across the board. But it's like there were those moments I was like, okay, we're watching like a PSA here.
Yes. But
and
like,
it kind of is right.
And I'm saying like, it does feel like a very good PSA.
Sure. Yeah.
Like a really well done PSA. I guess like my problem with those things, because it's not like dialogue specific, I guess, but like I don't believe, I guess personally, I think a lot of people would band together in that situation.
Yeah.
I am not as fearful
of like every man for themselves happening.
Yeah, that is a scary thought for me.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that that's what would happen.
No.
If that makes sense. And but it does feel like a warning if this were to look at what happens when you choose not to.
Right.
So it feels like there are moments where I'm like, this is really, like, I do feel like with the Julia Roberts character, it was like, okay, let's give who we would call a Karen some depth and maybe like we're seeing like a typical Karen and like this like very social justice warrior daughter, and they're like butting heads pretty frequently. And there's a reason for that. Yeah. It's like, these are very pressing like images in our brain right now, where this daughter is like we have these images in our mind of what these people are and like what they're like. Yeah. And I'm not sure it is successful in like actually giving them real depth and layers. But it's like, it's putting this character who is just like, I'm just going to be skeptical because I am like this, I have privilege. Why shouldn't I judge them by the color of their skin? Why shouldn't I judge it by how weird this feels? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do this? And like having that be kind of a motivation for her to kind of dig her heels in. Yeah. While against another character who's like, no one should ever feel anything bad just because of the color of our skin or because we own this house. Like,
I said so. Why don't you believe me? Yeah.
Like believe like the kind of the extremes we're seeing in a interpersonal, which I think is actually an interesting mix. Like,
it's interesting also to see kind of these archetypes of today deal with disaster,
I love that too,
right?
Yeah, like the archetypes of today. We're seeing, and everyone else is kind of, I think the both of the dads are just like
different kinds of people archetypes.
Yeah, but they're both just like doing their best.
Yeah. They enable everybody around them. They do their best to enable everyone around them. And when they don't, it's because of a big deal. Something has broken if they don't.
But we're seeing, and I think we're seeing both of these characters. And that's why like it does feel like weird and stunted, this like interaction between the daughter and the mother. Like, I think that is like the whole, like what happens when you're letting these like extreme thoughts and feelings and these entitled, I feel entitled to feel these things and think these things and to act this way. Yeah. And we're seeing that come against together. Do I think it was 100% successful? I don't. I don't really think so. That interaction felt particularly strange. Yeah. Where they were like looking for the daughter and they take like a break to have this conversation. Yeah. I'm not sure I believe that mother would have stopped moving her body until she found her daughter. Right. There's like moments like that where I'm like,
it's a little bit,
why is she...
It's on par with like the I'm going to give you that one final thing that's going to told you so and convince you because I've said exactly the right words. It gives that kind of like satisfaction of a hero speech of some kind. I don't know.
The thing is, like, they have this interaction and that's not when it's resolved. I guess this is what I appreciated about that moment. Yeah. It's like when she realizes that the daughter needs help.
Well, it all gets resolved. All of it gets thrown out the window when they chase the deer away and they hug. Deer away.
Well, yeah.
There's just a moment where they're just like, none of that matters.
Doesn't fucking matter.
None of that matters.
I think that's really interesting.
It is. It's an interesting moment.
I think there was, I'm surprised at the resistance for so long. And I wish there was like a little bit more direct like tension between the two of them. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I understand why they didn't lean so heavily into it. Because they have other things to deal with. Yeah.
I think that actually is the crux of the issue that I have really is that it's just Julia Roberts' character's internal problem that needs to be dealt with simultaneously with this external problem of an apocalypse isn't clear and strong enough.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't know. It doesn't bother me that much.
I just feel like that's what a story is.
I guess it was pretty clear to me. I guess like the whole time I was like, they keep trying to like paint her as this. Yeah. Like we're seeing all these times where she's like, she's not like a monster because they didn't want to make her. It wasn't really archetypal. Right. But we are seeing the archetypal modes of them come out.
Yeah.
And I guess that's part of it.
Sure. Yeah, I think maybe that segues well into one of my other criticisms from what you had mentioned earlier, where it's like the things that nothing, like the things that you expected to be terrible and it wasn't as bad as you thought. And and this lines up with her, like she wasn't as bad, or she would like no one was as bad as they could have been, and things didn't go as poorly as it could have. And part of that is useful because, as we said, the thing that's scary is in the background. But it's also it's a story, and we want to see these avatars that we are associating with actually get put through the ringer. And it was like one too many kind of like duds for me. Why isn't the gunfight shoot? Like I was convinced that like the son was going to walk out of the car and he was going to get shot. Like something horrible was going to happen. And there's like one too few horrible things kind of, where it was just like, or I wanted it to really get bad. And if it's not going to get bad on the outside, it's got to get bad on the inside. And it kind of doesn't even.
I guess I disagree there, because like it's that moment where it's like, okay, but then what's happening? Because you do ask yourself that. And when he's finally like, okay, we need to get on the level. Are we in this together or not?
Yeah.
When the two dads are talking.
Right.
And he's like, this is okay, we're here. This is what's real. Like this could be the problem. That we need to know right now if we're in this together, and there's no like real clear answer.
Yeah.
And like to be like, it just leaves it open. It's like the actual problem isn't this, isn't that, isn't this. Yeah, we can, but like there is a real danger just in not being clear and not being intentional with your relationships. And if you're not with me, you really are against me. Like we are going to crumble.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was
like a big, I think that was very interesting, where it sets up like scary thing. The scary thing isn't the outside things. Yes, those are scary. And that's why these characters are scared.
Yeah.
But that's not what the actual problem is.
Right. The problem's on the inside.
And I think it does do a good job of being like, it keeps being like, what is it? Are these deer going to get us? Are the planes going to crash on us? Is someone going to come in and attack us? No, it's not really. That's not what they're even trying to do.
Right.
They're trying to turn people against each other.
Right.
And that's an actual thing that we have to be intentional about.
Yeah. 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 I wish that was a little stronger for me, especially for just seeing why they would have issues with each other, because it's clear to me that that would be the danger, and it's clear that that's what they've conveyed. But I'm like,
I guess that goes.
What is her actual problem?
Yeah, that goes back to my like I see what they're doing, and I'm not sure I actually believe in every instance of like them not getting along or them like I'm sorry, but like things like the apocalypse. I know they try to do this, like things will go on as usual, and so the siblings will
be mean to each other or whatever.
But like, I'm sorry, when you're put in those situations,
you band together, man.
Real, kind.
Yeah,
like kindness. I guess I'm maybe a little bit more hopeful and optimistic in general, but like, I believe that there would just be more kindness that comes out in these scary moments.
Yeah. Yeah,
like,
I think I agree.
Especially for siblings. Because I've been in scary situations with my siblings, and I'm like, hey, it's okay.
Right. Despite having just argued with them 5 minutes ago, Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Because if there's, it's suggesting that there's like maybe not enough like love and relationship going on, which I think is, like that's the that's the danger. Like if we lean into even.
I mean,
if
that's
it's
why
like,
she runs away, right? That's like the suggestion. Is
That's
that
the
just
suggestion.
nobody
I don't-
listens to me?
I don't
No.
quite buy it.
I don't either.
And she's being ignored, and the mom's like, is not like spending
not actually-
every moment with her kids during this whole scary thing. That's the thing that like weirds
Yeah.
me out the most.
Yeah.
Like, because the second
Like
I was
they
on
went
that plane
out to,
watching
like,
this by myself,
yeah.
I was like, I wish I wasn't alone. I wish I was with like,
Anybody? Do I know anyone here? Yeah. All right. Is there anything else you want to continue with on what didn't work or what did work? We can move
go
on to
on to-
superlatives.
we rate before.
Oh, we
superlatives.
rate. Let's do that. Rate. Okay.
Story. You go ahead.
I'm gonna give it a 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a 3.5.
Okay.
It's not like the strongest, but
Yeah.
I thought it was good.
Yeah.
Technical.
I think I also give it a 2.
Oh, I give it a 4.
Really.
I liked the technical. I just thought it was solid. I thought on like without the dialogue wasn't perfect, but like I think the actors did about as good a job with the dialogue,
Yeah.
making it.
Yeah, I thought the acting was
Good,
fine.
isn't it?
I think I had a trouble with some, I mentioned before, some perspectives. There were some like weird shots where it's like you see like the whole front yard and the house, and then like the daughter and the father are talking after the white family leaves, and it's just like them like neck up in the bottom corner of the screen. Very weird. There's another scene where it's like I'm expecting, like, you're showing me a weird perspective of the husband and wife talking, and it looks like someone else is watching. So I'm like, oh my God, are they being watched? And maybe that's the feeling I'm supposed to get. But it just looked like it was like a half a second perspective, like through a window from a weird angle. There was some,
I don't know.
some
I guess,
like
in general-
soundtrack issues, like questionable choices for the soundtrack that I was like, what is this movie we're watching? I'm confused about the tone here. And some transitions between scenes was like done on like PowerPoint. Just weird, like loop-de-loop things. It was very weird. There was some very weird choices that just didn't match what I was watching.
I don't think
Content-wise.
that doesn't bother me. I think there was an element of like, yeah, well, there's a randomness and a it is supposed to be kind of disjointed and jarring in some ways. I guess that doesn't bother me. And nothing stood out that I was like, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I'll
I didn't love it. Noted.
Rewatch value.
Weirdly, I think I would give it a 4. I think I would watch it again. I would see it again.
I'll give it a 3. It's interesting to talk about,
Yeah.
but a little stressful for me, and not enough. Like you said, there's not a lot of like mystery in it, and I think I get it.
Yeah, I think there's...
It's one of those that I would watch again with people to like.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I wanted to talk about it. I wanted you to see it.
Yeah, it was weird because
I
I
would have watched it again. But
after I finished it, I did rewatch some of the scenes, like
Really?
like right after. Yeah, I went back and
Give it that
rewatched some of
4.
them. So I have already rewatched some of it because I was interested. I just, mostly because of how I thought it didn't work, that I was like trying to rack my brain around why it wasn't hitting me quite right.
yeah, I don't know. And some of that might be, I don't know, intentional or
Maybe, yeah.
like a question about it.
Yeah.
And I think there was like, I guess my thought that maybe some of it felt a little preachy and a little direct.
Yeah.
That you tend to
I shy away from.
like get turned off by.
Yeah.
You tend to not be able to kind of like interact with other elements sometimes when the preachiness is at a higher level.
Sure.
And I did feel that watching it.
Yeah.
That's why I was like very curious to hear your take.
Yeah, I
because there
think
was
that's a
couple
good
moments.
that's a good point, because I think that's one of the things that will tip me off or tip me into thinking that the internal stories haven't really kind of been shored up.
Yeah.
Because we're like talking about big things in this really obvious way, so you're not actually telling me about the story between people.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, let's
Move on to superlatives.
Yeah. So Oscar moment.
Oscar moment. Do you have one?
No.
Because I'm thinking,
I haven't seen it in a minute, so I'm like trying to think of a specific.
There's some like effects that really just worked for me. The end deer was a little CGI for me, but all the deer until then was like really great. And there's the eye moment I mentioned, the teeth falling out I mentioned, the boat crashing, the plane crashing. I thought all the effects were like really, really great. But I think I'd have to give the teeth getting pulled out as the effect that I'm like, that is my Oscar moment right there. He's pulling his teeth out. And like his reaction to it just seemed so appropriate too. For some reason, like this weird calm that was just like very bizarre.
Yeah.
I'm feeling fine. My teeth just fell out.
It's very weird.
I'm not sick. My teeth just fell out.
It's so funny.
Oh.
I think I'm going to have to give it to that moment that you talked about where he was talking to the woman who was speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
I think that, especially as you were describing it, I'm like, yeah, I think that's like a really poignant thing. It's like we don't even have to be making these conscious choices to be against each other.
Right.
It's really easy to be scared and to leave people behind, even when we are like, we feel for other people.
Yeah.
We leave people behind all the time.
Right.
When we're like, I'm sorry, I feel bad, but I can't.
Yeah.
Like that is something that happens. We can't help everyone.
Yeah.
But what happens when we kind of have to?
Right. Then
So
who
I think
will?
but it was it was like
It's a stressful scene.
very stressful. They both did very well.
Yeah, it was good. It's great. It's a great scene.
It's really, it's like,
I found myself wanting to know what she was saying.
I know. I was very curious. I tried not to, I was like, don't look at it. Cause I was like, maybe I was also on a plane. So I didn't really do that. But yeah.
I didn't turn on I turned off the subtitles. Yeah. We usually watch the subtitles.
Well, I watch the subtitles. They don't put it.
Okay. It's just,
it might have been
in Spanish, maybe.
Spanish. I don't remember.
Yeah. I was really curious because I know that she said something about red. I was just like really curious what she was saying.
I have
but
no idea.
That's part of the stress of it.
Yes.
It's like, I don't actually know what she's saying.
Yeah.
Is she going to be eaten? What's happening?
Right. Okay. So.
Okay. Unearned moment.
I have to, something about the daughter running away and them taking a break, like those two together, they're like connected.
Yeah.
The daughter running away and then her taking the break to have the conversation. Like the conversation was interesting. And I think that was like what the story was leading to. Mm-hmm. But it's like, there was too many moments where I'm like, why are these people not choosing each other?
Yeah.
This is all they have. People care about relationships. They're not just like,
especially when it's like it actually is a big deal. Like it very quickly would have been obvious how big a deal this is, and they would have locked in.
yeah.
Or just killed each other. Like it kind of goes either way, really.
I was scared, just like, I was really like, again, at the end when like we like go to the daughter in the basement, I'm like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Then that's not the point.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I think that's interesting.
But that she would have had the balls to like go and do that herself. I just don't really
I think my unearned moment, I think I have to give it to the first plane crash he finds. Because he goes onto the beach behind his neighbor's house and doesn't immediately see the plane crash, which after a moment we see is like all around him. So I'm not sure why you wouldn't have seen it. Instead, he just sees a watch in the sand, picks up the watch, and it's like a piece of an arm. It's like half of an arm. Yeah. And then he falls over and then wakes up, and literally scattered around him is a plane crash. Like that would have been the first thing. Like it's not the watch. It was like that was for our benefit as an audience. Sure. Oh, we see a watch and then the scene expands, right?
Yeah, okay.
And so they sacrifice his reaction for our reaction, and I do not buy that.
That's fair. I'd have to rewatch it. I don't remember that being that big of a problem, but that happens all the time. And sometimes it's like, we can buy it and we can.
Yeah.
Any other superlatives we want to add?
God, if we had like visuals, it'd be like best like snarky face that Julia Roberts gives.
Good
I think
faces.
she's got some good faces. Yeah, there's
I think
good.
she does well in it, just generally.
Yeah, I think she has some of the worst lines, but
She
yeah.
does. She does. Yeah.
But I think she is good.
She's good. She's great.
I don't know if I have any other superlatives really. Scariest thing. What do you think would be for you? What's the scariest of the disasters that they encounter? What's the scariest one for you?
I mean, I think I would be most freaked out, I think, by the plane crash.
Yeah.
I think that would be the most horrifying for me.
Yeah. I think
That is something that feels, I mean, like the Teslas, I think would be scary in the moment because it's like direct danger.
Mm-hmm.
The boat, something about, it's scary, but like it's a boat. I don't know what kind of technology is on it in the first place. And it just kind of like drifted ashore. Like not as scary. Something about the plane crash. There's something like, I was also on a plane, I guess, when I watched it. So there's something really visceral about it. But it did feel like, oh my God, this is like,
sure.
I guess that made me think, that made it very present in my mind how many people just fell out of the sky.
Right.
Falled.
Yeah.
I just said falled.
They all falled out. I think for me, it would have been the sound linked up with the illness after.
I was going to
and
say
that's
maybe
assuming,
the teeth, maybe just like,
that's like assuming that is actually related. And that's the implication,
if the
right?
teeth fell out of my head, absolutely that would be.
Yeah. Even if it hadn't been just watching it happen, be like, oh my God, because that sound happened many times. So it's like, well, the next time it's going to get me instead.
Earplugs.
Oh my
Now
God.
we're all wearing
like
earplugs.
horrible. Just like that this horrible, horrible sound is happening. Blah, blah.
Terrible.
Okay. Anyway.
That's it.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode of Two Grooms, One Plot. Follow us everywhere you can. Subscribe on YouTube and or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can follow us on all of the social medias, and we'll be posting little things here and there. Thanks again, and see you next time. I am Pavi Proczko, and remember, all you have to do is get along during an apocalypse.
And I'm Colin Funk. And remember, watching the end of Friends is more important than your family.
Oh, yep. All right, thanks. Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Two Grooms, One Plot, a Pavitas Productions project, hosted by Colin Funk and Pavi Proczko. This podcast was produced by Chicago Podcast Studio. Our opening cartoon was created by Gloriu, and our theme song was composed by me, Pavi Proczko. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite listening platform. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Two Grooms, One Plot for updates on new episodes and behind-the-scenes content. If you have any feedback, comments, concerns, or kudos, you can email us at twogroomsOneplot@gmail.com. Please rate and review us wherever you can. It would help us out a bunch. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time.